Awesome. We are so excited you guys are here. We are jumping right in. We're going to get started. If people are catching up, there will be slides and a recording available after. So if you're furiously taking notes, you're more than welcome to do that, but you can also refer to the content at a later time. And we're really excited to preview a few development opportunities with you. Some are active, some are really active, and others are in progress. So kind of three different phases of the world today. And before we do that, let's kick it off with a couple intros.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Christy Kendall. I've been a real estate developer for the past 17 years. I grew up in a small town in Ohio with 2,500 people. After college, I moved to Florida and accidentally fell into real estate development by getting in the sign industry. And we happened to be putting signs up for CVS Pharmacy. So it was through that I ended up working with the developers who were building the new locations. And one day I got the opportunity to join their team and then opened our first office for development in Southern California, in Orange County, and then had a whirlwind of the next 4 years working on 30 ground up development deals a year from San Francisco down to San Diego. And it was from the time the guys got the deal under contract, I worked with the city on the due diligence, hired the architects and engineers through entitlements, permitting, dry utility consulting, construction management. Uh,
Christy, are you there? Are we having power outages in Florida right now? Just double checking it's not just me. Does everyone have a frozen Christy right now? That might be a
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
frozen Christy. Okay.
Mhm.
We're going to give Christy a second, even though I know she's really excited because she's actually showcasing one of the development projects behind her. She's always a hard act to follow. So we're just going to skip right to me because Christy has done so much when it comes to development that it is impressive and amazing. And she's a wealth of knowledge and so excited to share more with you today, as am I. I am more of what you might call an emerging developer, someone that had gone the corporate path, had built a career in digital marketing, worked for a global agency, and then just decided that the 9 to 5 was not going to be for me long term. And so my husband and I started by buying a cabin and remodeling it for our own purposes, and then built a cabin empire, kind of accidentally, but bought a resort following the renovation of our cabin and having it go so well. So that is a little bit about my path. In the last few years, we've 3x'd our hospitality business revenue. And at that time, I was like, all right, operating a business is actually a lot, very rewarding, but a lot. And we knew that finding spaces and creating amazing opportunities and assets for our community was really where we wanted to focus. That brought me to Christy, and we are here today now. And Christy is back, so I'll let you finish your intro to share more about what that local development process looks like and some of the things that we're working on.
Oh, these technology gremlins. Yeah, so long story short, I started my own company in 2015. It's been 9+ years now. We have employees in 4 states in California, Illinois, Ohio, and Florida. We do development. We also do consulting to help developers. And we are, we've created the local real estate developer community so we can help empower you to be those change makers in your community to transform those underutilized properties, those old buildings, the vacant lots, into awesome new assets that benefit your community, make you some money, and really help transform the places that you're living. So we are stoked about that, and I can't wait to get in the weeds of this stuff.
Yeah, awesome assets is going to be our new hashtag. I haven't trademarked it yet, but I'm so here for it. So anyway, that is the two of us. We are thrilled today to dive right into case studies. And if you've joined us in the last few presentations, we've done a lot of talking, and this time we're hoping to get some more interaction from you guys, find out what you're interested in. So we've got a couple of polls coming, but the focus of today will be going through 3 specific case studies that we are looking at various stages of the development process, some of the things that we're thinking about as they are becoming development projects, talking about the timelines that it takes to work on some of these, even just to get a deal closed, as I'm very much in the process of right now. And we're super jazzed to take you through these. If you have questions, you can ask or drop them in the chat at any time, and we'll be able to answer those as we go. But take it away, Chrissy.
Yeah, so you guys can see in this photo and also behind me some pictures of some modular construction. And if we go back, so I live in Fort Myers Beach, Florida. We were devastated by Hurricane Ian that came through in September of 2022. I left the day before, went to the East Coast of Florida, and for 3 days was watching the news to see if I still had a home. It was, I think it was Friday morning where I looked at the TV and I'm watching CNN and I was like, I think that's my roof. I think I might have a house. And so I drove across the state, took my friend's bike, rode in because there was no way to get vehicles into our community. And it was devastating. It looked like the apocalypse had happened. 90% of our homes were completely destroyed or severely destroyed. 100% of our businesses were wiped out. And it was just a devastating process. So right away, knowing that I understand real estate development, my team put together resources so that the community, if they wanted to stay, that they could have access to architects and engineers and understand the permit process. And it took some time to get to the point, but I knew that there would be opportunity for us to be able to make an impact that could help rebuild our community and help rebuild it faster. So it was because of all of that early networking in my home, in my community, that really started to create these opportunities. So I just want you guys to think about your communities, think about where the needs are, because it's right in your backyard. You don't have to do out of state investing. You don't have to go learn a new market. You guys know in your communities the places that you need or that got destroyed and that can be rebuilt. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through these, because you can make a difference in the town you live in. So what came to happen was that we ended up working and talking with many contractors, and a couple of them started getting super creative. And then that's where this modular construction aspect came into play. And key question, why Fort Myers Beach? Well, we physically lost a ton of our homes. I think we have somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 single family home and duplex lots. And a majority of those were completely destroyed, or first floor homes that were over 50% destroyed. So they have to be completely rebuilt. We're Florida. We're a tourist town. Being on the west coast of Florida, we have tons of people from the Midwest that come down. So we're huge in tourism. So we're also hurting from that standpoint of not having as many people here. So rebuilding as quickly and efficiently as possible is a huge thing. And I will tell you, one of the things I was most inspired by was the resiliency of our community, how everyone just rolled up their sleeves, how our community came together and just were like, you know what? Yeah, this really sucks, but we're going to rebuild. And it was because everyone kept taking steps forward that we were able to, you can feel a community being uplifted by the people who live here and the changes that are happening. So there's tons of opportunity. Now, when we put our business hats on and we go, okay, how can we both make an impact and make some money? This is a prime area to do it. And ideally, what my team and I have talked about is we want to help make Fort Myers Beach an example of how can we help all communities destroyed by disaster, whether it's earthquakes or hurricanes or tornadoes or you name it, like whatever that disaster is, we're wildfires. We're going to have that more often. So we need to start getting creative with these solutions. And that's another reason why we're benefiting right now from technology, because we can share ideas across the country so easily and then tweak it to fit our needs. So the market needs and project type, we have a high demand and need to get housing rebuilt. On top of the fact that we have so many lots that need rebuilt, we don't have enough contractors. So getting creative with how can we work with the current workforce that we have, but rebuild faster and cheaper and more efficiently. And that's really where modular construction comes into play. We've been looking at this for several years across all markets, and Reno and Tahoe and Ohio and Florida and Michigan, across the country, trying to figure out how can we make this happen. And it's been amazing to see technology evolve. And one of the keys to this, because everyone has a negative stigma about modular or prefab homes, is to help tell the right story to where it's the same building materials that you would use if you were to drive here to a project site and drive all the materials here and build it, only they're being built in a factory in Georgia. So that's a key, is making sure that you're using the right materials, the right companies, the right resources, and doing it effectively. So when we think about the structure of how we're going to do these projects, There's going to be a combination of partners that happen. We'll have a combination of general partners who are actively managing the deals. We might bring in a couple limited partners who have the money but don't necessarily have the time or expertise. So there'd be a combination of those stakeholders that are going to be involved in the project. It'll also involve, like we talk about all the time, your strategic partners aren't necessarily people who are your debt or equity partners, but they are the people who are going to help make this project happen, from your architects to your engineers, in this case, to companies like Affinity Building Solutions, who are building these modules in their factory and then shipping them to us. And a super cool thing about the way this is built, if you think about it, construction, you've got your electrician who drives from his house to his shop in the morning, grabs the work van, goes and gets the supplies, sits in traffic, drives to the job site, works in snow, rain, heat, you name it, terrible conditions, and then drives home, sits in traffic, and then does it all over again. Whereas with this concept, you've got that same electrician leaving his house, driving to the factory, rolling up to his station in the factory, having his cooler, having his music, sitting down and putting in the exact same stuff in a controlled environment. So now you've got efficiencies and you've got a quality control that you don't have in the field. You're saving so much time. So the quality of life of the contractors is improving, and the build time is greatly reduced. And we'll go into that in the next one. But it's incredible to see what technology can do. And when it comes to prefab, everything from a construction standpoint, the more we can build not on site is where the industry is going. And it will be a disruption and it will probably piss a bunch of people off, but it's something that we need to do to move into the next phase of how we handle this industry. So we are going to start with an initial proof of concept to maybe take a couple, maybe it's one, maybe it's two duplex lots, and put together the partnership to buy the land, to build, to have the modules built, and then to maybe we sell one of them, maybe we keep one of them, to allow the market to continue to rebuild. But we're going to put together that proof of concept next year and get that rolling. So that way, once we have that done, now we've got all of our strategic partners, we've got the lenders, we've got the equity partners, we've got all the stakeholders on board. They see how these deals will happen. And now we can go ahead and expand that and make sure that we have the right players and the team members in place to scale this up. Quick high level cost of it. Right now, the dirt for a duplex lot is somewhere between 800 to 1.5 million. The benefit of this is that it's $300 a square foot to build this type of module unit in the factory. And right now, new construction here is $600 to $800 a square foot. So we're saving a significant amount of money by going the modular route. So the total price per duplex property is anywhere from 1.5 to just over 2 million. For the island itself, it will take 7 to 15 years to rebuild. As far as the proof of concepts and how these will go, it will take from the time you dial in and say, this is the prototype I want, it'll take 6 months total to go through the permit process, to have it built, to have your contractor in the field doing the underground utilities and structural, and then getting the modules set and finishing the property. Standard construction is 1.5 to 2 years. So now we've taken construction and greatly reduced that time. We've taken the costs and about cut that in half. And now you've created something that's scalable and something that we can really create a fund and have a plan for how to scale this up. So as far as the exit strategies, it'll be a combination. And it will also depend on who your equity partners are. Do they want it to be more of a flip model to where they're going to have their cash in, but then they want it back? Or are they in it for the long haul? And there's benefits both ways. One of the benefits of an entire community being destroyed is that everything is going to be rebuilt new, and we're all going to win from an appreciation and a value standpoint. So there's pros and cons. What we'll probably do is do a combination to maybe sell off half of them to reduce the debt and equity partners, and then keep some and just manage those to hold those in the portfolio long term. And we'll just bring in a combination of equity partners who fit each of those buy boxes. So key takeaways: get creative with construction and how that's done. Things like modular. So for example, like this one that's coming in, it took them 3.5 hours to build a 1,700 square foot house. That's freaking cool. We were there the entire time and it was incredible. It builds trust through the community, and there was probably a crowd of 100 people out watching this the whole time. We were all so excited for Mo, who was the owner, to get his house back to where he could move in a couple weeks and have that going. So this made a huge difference. This gave people in our community hope that they could stay, that it wasn't going to be too expensive. This was just a huge, huge, great sign for all of us to just be like, wow, like we can do this. We can rebuild, we can stay, and we can do this in a cost-effective way. So
Christy, I realize I'm not supposed to ask questions, but I have one. Did you guys assess the panel options? Because I know some of the stigma that I hear about modular, right, is that, you know, it's cheap, it's fast, it's not. And I think a lot of like luxury modular, like places in our area up in northern Michigan are doing luxury modular way better than they have. And we still have like zoning that won't allow modular because they have bad connotations. But have you looked at like the panels, like when they build a panel at a time, was that an option with this project?
So what's interesting is the company who owns this company in Georgia is creating panels, and they're backed by the Gates Foundation. So they're in the process of building 5 more factories. So yes, that is all in the works, and that is something super awesome that is happening. It's not ready yet, but it's on the cusp. And then like we looked at bringing maybe these up to the UP to help to get costs down. But you have to think about the state regulations and codes. The building codes are different based on where you're at in the country, and you have to get approvals to be able to have certain types of products. So it, like right now, this only happens in the Southeast region for this company, but there are these companies in every market in every region. And it's just a matter of everyone getting their technology and the way they do it to a point where it's cost effective, because it's not quite there yet. Like we're building modular affordable housing in Tahoe right now. And it was partially because of the short build season that we have, because there's only so many months that you can dig in the ground. And it's not cost effective yet. They ended up going that route, but it was not cheaper than building regular. So it's getting there. And like you said, on the zoning regulations, we ran into that in Carson City, Nevada, where there's a builder who was taking shipping containers, turning them into these amazing houses. I would totally live in them. Structurally sound, earthquake, resistant. These are things that ship across, oceans to other countries. But because in their code, they said you cannot have housing in a shipping container. They literally said that because of historically in the past, people just live in old, train containers. So you have to go through and then get an ordinance updated and get the planning commission and the city council. So there's lots of factors involved, but it is all changing.
No, thanks. That's super interesting. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Christy, for sharing so much about Fort Myers Beach. If you have questions about it, feel free to drop them. Oh, sorry. I did see Justine had a question. Is there data comparing home value over time of newer prefab versus traditional construction? Good question.
There might be some data. Honestly, though, and we've talked about this with lenders, once it's built. So, and I just drove someone past one of them, taking him to the airport the other day. You'd never know that it was made off-site and assembled in the field. So to the buyers and to the future lenders, unless they really dug in the records, they wouldn't know. So, and in this case, it used all the same building materials as if you build it in the field. So I think it's on a case by case. I don't know the full answer to that, though.
Yeah, and I think it'll be something that we learn more about over time, because I do think it's becoming more acceptable, or different levels of modular are becoming more acceptable, and that is part of it. We did pop a poll up. If you haven't had a chance to answer that, we're going to go over that in 1 second. We did have one more question, though. Is there a need for partnership for design build for the factories?
As in bringing the factory in as a partner, or?
And maybe we should talk a little bit for a moment about how we're defining partners. When we talk about like general partners or limited partners, that's really about the whole entire deal. It doesn't necessarily even mean financing partners, right? These are just the people that you want on your team to help you do a project. And some of those might be paid. Your general contractor is going to be paid. Your architect's going to be paid. So maybe we need to redefine our use of partners, Christy. But generally, is there a need for partnership for design build for the factories? I think it depends on who you're working with. And and what their level of expertise is. If you're looking for someone that is really good at creating structures or modular construction, but they don't have someone to go out and acquire the land, and you're really good at that as a developer, that could be something that would be a really beneficial partnership. But it all kind of depends on what the individuals are that are coming to the table and what they bring.
Yeah, and that kind of made me think. It also depends. So if we're thinking about the factory in Georgia, that's a massive factory. They're in the business of building these modular units. They're not in the business of being the developer. Whereas the builder that we had that was turning shipping containers into homes out in Nevada, that guy 100% could have done what we call a joint venture, a JV deal, where he could have built at cost and came in as a partner with us, to where we brought in the development side, the permitting, he brought in the construction cost, and for him building that at cost, he then got equity into the deal. So I think it depends on the type. And really, when we say partners, that's a good point. Partners is everyone that you're communicating with throughout the process. And as I was building out the course, every single time it came up that every person that you're talking to, you are constantly networking, making connections, building relationships, because it takes an entire community to make projects happen. You will have tons of stakeholders. So looking at everyone in a partnership standpoint from, hey, you're building a relationship, and even if you're hiring them and paying them to be the architect or the broker or paying the lender the loan fees, they're a partner in this deal and they're invested just like you are. They might not be an equity partner and have ownership stake, but so and the beautiful part about real estate development and commercial real estate is that everything is negotiable and you can make up whatever you want as long as all the parties agree and the deal works. You can create whatever structure you want. So
Cool. And Christy, we had one more question, then we're going to move on to the next one from Parker. Do you use the build factories for every stage of the build, finish work, concrete, pulling permits, essentially using them as a GC? Question mark.
In the case of, I would say short answer, no, I want control. So and the way that we would work with partners, whether it was Nevada or Florida, we would control the process. We would work in partnership with the factories to make sure that their designs for what they were building could match up to the foundations we were doing. But like in the case of the modulars in Fort Myers Beach, we're hiring a contractor to do all of the site work in the field, do the underground utilities, build the structural foundation, and we have to be elevated. So, they're elevating it anywhere from 10 to 15 feet above grade, so above the ground. So that is all done and set in. And depending on which modular company you're going with, there's one in Miami who will not start building the modules until you have that foundation locked in and you shoot the corners so they can make sure that the mods they're building perfectly fit the foundation you did. In this case, this company is okay building them. And as the contractor, you have to be extra aware that you're shooting the grades. You make sure that that structure matches up how it needs to be. So that would be the level of coordination. But no, as the developer, as the owner, the more that you can control of a situation and not pass off on someone else, the more you're going to control the timeline and the schedule. And we talk about this a lot. No one cares about your project as much as you do. So you can check your brain to someone, you can check the work to someone, but you're probably not going to make as much money and it's probably going to take a little bit longer. So I would highly recommend staying a little more actively involved in your project.
Well, thank you for that, Parker. We are going to keep moving. We've still got 2 more projects to get through, but I did just want to share with the audience. We've got the majority of us thinking residential right now, which is amazing because there are a lot of grants and opportunities for supporting housing developments, at least depending on where you are. We're going to talk about where I am in just a second. We've also got some interesting commercial and mixed use and some industrial. And I'm excited since we just did a residential project. We're going to do one more residential project, and then we're going to talk about a mixed use project today. So awesome. We're going to keep moving. Thanks for sharing, you guys. Excellent. And so Finn Hall, I didn't mean to make this happen, but it feels a little bit like this presentation is, we're talking about catastrophes that happen in ways that you might be able to find opportunities within that. And that is not the goal. However, it's happening again here in Hancock. In Hancock, Michigan is where I am from and based. It's at the very tippy top of the United States. In Michigan, we are about as close to Canada as you can be, with the exception of the 50 miles of Lake Superior that separate us from Thunder Bay, Ontario. Ontario. It's a pretty amazing part of the world. A lot of people think it might be like lower Michigan. A lot of people have been to different parts of Detroit, Grand Rapids, and that is all very flat and farmy. And we are full of adventure and a little bit like a mini Pacific Northwest, were I to brag about it. So that is where we are for these last two case studies. Unfortunately, though, one of our smaller universities had to close and essentially filed bankruptcy in May of 2023. And it has created a lot of opportunity locally for our community to think about how best to use these buildings that were recently being used by the university for housing, for teaching, for many things. And this has been a big focus in my community. We actually just invited a bunch of developers up to help figure out how best to pitch and plan how to use these spaces. And Finn Hall is one of those. So we're going to talk about what it might look like to transform Finn Hall. And the concept here, Christy, I'll go a few more and then let you dive in. The concept here is we've got a giant residential structure that was used as a dorm. When I went to school, everyone had a room and then there was like a shared floor of plumbing and utilities. In this particular residential hall, it's a Jack and Jill kind of bathroom connecting two rooms together, which could be a really great opportunity to convert into different types of units, maybe a one bed, a studio, a two bed. And so part of the plan for this project would be to create mixed use housing space. And the real and a couple of like quick overviews before Christy talks a little bit more about the opportunity and some of the creative ways that we're thinking about this, is to show you a little bit about where we are on the map. So you see Houghton Hancock, we are about 4 hours away from Green Bay, about 6 hours from Minneapolis, a really long way from Detroit. So just giving you a little bit of perspective on where we are in the world. Hancock itself has 5,000 residents, but our larger area is about 20 and our county is up to 30. But we receive a ton of tourism and our population of the city is the only one that has continued to climb in the Upper Peninsula over the last 3 years, where others, I think, have gone up and down. Hancock has continued to rise. In the area, in terms of industries and what we have in this market, we have medical, a couple of hospitals, technology, a lot of spinoffs from our engineering university, because we are home to Michigan Technological University, and lots of industry happening from projects that come out of there as well. Cool. Christy, take us through the market needs.
So I actually went up and explored this market in January because I felt it necessary to go freeze my butt off. And it was a phenomenal 2 days where I toured the market, met with Lynn and city managers, city council members. We toured this building, and it's why when you can do stuff in your backyard or in towns that you're used to, it makes so much sense. Because before I saw the market, I was very like, no, that's too small of a town. That's too risky. Don't want to do it. After seeing the community, meeting with the stakeholders, seeing that they're actually growing and that there is business and there's a vibrant community, and it is a mini Pacific Northwest, it just helped me understand the market more. So seeing this building, walking through it, you can just see, it's like when you walk into a rundown single family house and you're like, oh, but this could be an amazing house once I get my hands on it. It's the same concept when you guys think of larger buildings and repurposing them. And we wanted to throw in a larger property because you will be able to do projects like that too. You'll just pull in different stakeholders who have different expertise to help you do that. So in the case of this, a really cool concept that has been going around is doing some type of multi-generational housing where you can have, so in this building it's set up and there's two different wings. You could have on one wing, you could have grad students and employees for some of the local companies. And on the other side, you could have the 55 plus, but
Have Florida internet, let me tell you. One of the other things that's really cool about this community, it is a sister city to Finland. Hancock is, it's a sister city to
you just think about, okay, well, how could we in Reno and other places? Huh?
Sorry, it cut you off, and then I think it tried to like fast speed talk you. It was really fun. So I was diving in. But yeah, keep going.
So basically you've got your young professionals on one side, you've got your 55 plus on the other who are active. And then you've got the middle where it's like, hey, let's think about turning this cafeteria into something. Well, there's not, we can find a place to have lunch on Monday afternoon. So it's like, oh, well, what if we take this kitchen and we turn it into both a commercial kitchen, but also create a space where local restaurants could just set up and they can all have their own spot. And then they can cut their operational costs down and their overhead. You have multiple options. You're inspiring entrepreneurship. You can create an area for the saunas. You can have a workout room, and you could have the, whether it's the younger people or the older leading the workouts. And there's so much collaboration that can happen there. So as we're thinking about putting that together, it just became an incredibly exciting project.
There's a few more like cultural things that I want to lean into and kind of underline that Christy said. Like I mentioned, we are heavily Finnish influenced. What we're also seeing is that a lot of people are coming here to retire or have a second home here. And so one of the issues we've had with rising interest rates is that people are not willing to sell their home. They don't want to figure out where they're going. So the concept of doing having a place to go for people that maybe want to live here part-time, maybe they're early retired or planning to retire, they don't want to maintain a lawn. We have tons of people in their 20s and 30s that are looking to stay and trying to figure out housing right now. And it's a huge gap in our market in terms of workforce housing and not having people being ready to move because they've got such great interest rates. So this project aims to solve a few of those needs. One, helping someone that's maybe looking to downsize and have a great walkable, friendly location, have access to all of the amenities that downtown offers, but not have to take care of driveways or maybe even leave for the winter because we get a lot of snow. So thinking about this mixed use concept, but also the multi-generational housing concept for this area feels like the right and a creative fit. We've been partnering with a few people in the area, as Christy mentioned, the city, the housing commission, and as well as some of the more regional players that are working on trying to solve for this. And that has been a huge part of putting this project together. And I think we talk about that on the next, so I'm going to stop saying what's on the next slide. Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a combination, and this one will take the entire community. It's a large project. You'll see on the next slide, it's probably a $15 to $25 million project, depending on what the scope is. You could do it cheaper, you could do it way more grandiose, and it just depends. This is where when a deal first comes together and you're coming through the ideas, you've got everything that's out there and you're really honing in what does the market need, what does the project need, and you're shaping that scope. So this will be a combination of general and limited partners. Because of the size of the deal, it could potentially be a syndication where you have your limited partners and you're actively raising capital for it. But it could also, we're working on another concept where we're creating the local community REIT, which will allow us to create real estate investment trusts specific to areas. And the benefit of that is that just like the Fundrise model, if you guys are familiar with that, but any regular person can invest $500 or $1,000. You don't need to be an accredited investor to put money into a project. So it's a really cool concept where you can create a REIT for a local community, and then your local residents can put money into it and make a return on their investment while supporting this project. So it'll be a combination of all of that. And so and there will be so many strategic partners as well, which Lynn can speak more to, with how many different people, because of how much we call it hair on the project, because there's so much to it, that we will need buy-in. It's from pretty much the entire community. But by the time it's done and it's repurposed into its final form, it's going to be something that really will set them apart. So yeah, so like we said, it's probably going to cost, if we use $300 a square foot, somewhere between 15 to 25 million. It'll be a combination of federal, state, and local grants, brownfield, blight, all of the incentives that are out there. Try to get some TIFs and some different tax incentives and abatement, getting your debt and your equity partners in. And there will be probably tons of sweat equity that goes into that too. And that's where you bring your expertise into a project in exchange for equity instead of cash. So It's a large project that will probably require tapping into every possible source, which in our full course, which I just finished doing this section, we'll go through the institutional debt, the alternative debt, the personal debt, the equity partners, the cash, the grants, and other incentives to give you guys exposure to all the different ways that you can fund a deal and put together that capital stack, which all that is saying, here's what it takes between debt and equity to make this deal work. So for this build out, it will probably for the initial phase be somewhere between an 18 to 36 month renovation project, making it go. By the time it's fully done, probably, like it says here, 2 to 4 years. So there's so many facets that will go into it. And as the scope's defined, then those ranges will get tightened up to where maybe phase one is 18 months and phase two is 9 months, but that all gets dialed in. The further you get into a deal, the more real it becomes, the more the partners and players are involved. So, and this one, yes, there will be economic returns, but the social benefits for the community is going to be off the hook. It's not even a community I live in, but I kind of had adopted it at this point, and it's going to make such an incredible impact and make Hancock even more awesome than it already is.
Absolutely. Actually, if you have ideas too, the city owns 3 buildings next to this concept, and they're actively working on trying to identify developers that are interested in taking on projects that would support them. If I have anyone here from the West Coast and wants to go all McMenamins on this project, you reach out to me. I'm here for it.
Well,
And
and
also,
Amy is saying, I love this concept. You could add a childcare center in combination. Well, we did walk another building. I think it was another building. We walked so many that had the library, and it's like, oh, this would be a perfect daycare center and childcare and provide that support. So yeah, there are so many options, which is so cool in this.
and that's a huge need. In addition to housing, I actually know some people who moved here and couldn't find childcare and ended up moving away. And I was like, wow, that, I don't have children, so I don't understand how big of a burden that is. But if that's what's keeping people from staying in this amazing community, that's a huge problem that a developer can come in and work with the community to solve.
Yep.
Cool. I think we hit this pretty much on the head, that we feel this project with the multi-generational support can really come into a diverse opportunity for the entire community and create growth. Multiple buildings, as I mentioned, are kind of going through this. Finn Hall is unique since it is that big residential building in the back, but there are other structures on this college campus that are in need of ideas. This is also really cool because this campus is centrally located. It's just off of downtown and right across from where I think it's a $5 million development project is happening with the local community co-op. So there's a food and like a food court area kind of happening down the hill where more projects and businesses could benefit from having a influx of energy and ideas for this part of the community.
And the amazing thing as we roll into the next one is that the minute you start to create an impact in your community, you're creating momentum. Someone else is going to be like, wow, they did that. Maybe I could do mine. And that's the whole point, guys, is to create that ripple effect to help lead the charge and be the change maker in your community, because people are going to notice it. Just like on the beach, people are starting to rebuild and rebuild with vigor because they saw someone else make progress. So you're paving the way for them by doing projects like this.
Yeah, good call. And with that, we have our second poll of the day. Which type of project are you most interested in from a development standpoint? Sharing the results of that with you quickly. Finding opportunities, so on the hunt for new things, it sounds like. And then some of you are interested in planning and design, someone in construction and someone in project management. Also, all great and necessary pieces of the development puzzle, and probably stuff that we'll use to inform our next webinar. So if you have any ideas and want to hear specific ideas about those particular areas, let us know, reply to this. We really appreciate it. And thank you guys for responding. Awesome. Okay, moving right along. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the demographics since we did that already. This is located in Hancock, just down the hill from the Finn Hall project that we just reviewed. And in spite of it being a very blurry picture, we consider this to be prime waterfront property. And what you're looking at here is the Portage Lift Bridge, which separates our two communities, Houghton and Hancock. Houghton has a university, which you can kind of make out back here, and drives a large population base basis. And it is here, this bridge, that over 480,000 people travel to a year in our tiny little towns to come and experience the many wonders that are the Keweenaw Peninsula, which is everything on the left side of your screen. And we also refer to that fondly as the sunny side because it's south facing and always beautiful, even when there's 300 inches of snow. It is a very wonderful place. And this particular property that we're talking about is what you see in this area here, including the commercial space, which is here. There's a lawn, there's also a pavilion, and then there's also a separate building that is in the back, currently used for storage. So we're going to talk a little bit about this waterfront. And also, if you're from a waterfront community, you know how the move is to have food and access to water and boats and all of these things accessible to your waterfront community. Unfortunately, because of the era of mining and the way that this area was developed, we have not prioritized waterfront access. There are currently no waterfront restaurants on the water that you could literally drive your boat to and walk out and have a drink. You could park, but you'd have to go somewhere else. So we are also looking at this as a waterfront revitalization for our community. And there's been a lot of steps and progress made at our sister city over in, well, not our sister city, Finland, the city across the bridge, Houghton, where they've been working on developing infrastructure. And Hancock is where we're kicking it off with this project. Cool. So why the sunny side? As we mentioned, and this is a kind of a better image if the visuals are more helpful for you, this particular parcel here kind of kicks off what you see a series of residences up on top of the hill. And then you've got our downtown right here. I think Finn Hall might actually be this building right here. So a lot of activity and, well, a lot of inactivity happening on the waterfront. Aside from some residences, this is a community park that right here's the community park. This is the development we're talking about, right? This whole section here, a couple of businesses and a hotel in dock space. Unfortunately, their restaurant closed down a few years ago. So we are in desperate need in this area of some things to do for our residents as well as our boating community. The city of Hancock has actually prioritized waterfront development. And that's another thing that if you're looking for projects and you're looking to talk to cities and you try to find what's available and finding deals, do that first. Find out what their priorities are. If they're prioritizing developing the waterfront, okay, what opportunities exist there? Who can I talk to? Who owns that land? Where can that potentially be a resource that I look at? And again, this particular development has a snowmobile and a trail access behind it. Tried to point and test too much, and now I went too far. But we've got, in the winter, we've got a trail access to snowmobile trails that connect hundreds and hundreds of miles all the way up through the Keweenaw and throughout the UP. And that goes right behind the back door of this development. It's a walking trail in the summer. Like we mentioned, the bridge provides lots of tourism traffic as well as the local community of about 20 to 30,000, depending how far out you go. But the hub here, Houghton and Hancock, are the prime locations for this waterfront development project. And the way that we approached this was to think a little bit creatively and work on some real estate entrepreneurship. So you can see what we've done here is worked a little bit at risk, which is not maybe something that our seasoned Christy here would recommend. But in this particular project, we wanted to make a splash. And so we had that opportunity this past weekend to bring in some energy. And one of the ways that we're approaching this entire development is to bring in multiple cash flows from the different businesses or the different properties that are operating here. And what I mean by that is when this got listed on the MLS, people saw it and they were like, wow, that's really expensive. I could never afford to pay that with one commercial building. Essentially, they were looking at the restaurant that had been partially remodeled and is not complete and said, that's a lot of money. I don't know how I would do that with today's interest rates. The approach that we took was to come at this project and look at it with multiple sources of cash flow that could support it. That meant multiple businesses. That means a phased approach to possibly taking down this structure and building up 3 stories so that we can add townhouses. And so talking to the city, making sure our partners were aware and on board with the plans and making sure that all of what we wanted to do was possible, suddenly made this a financially viable project where if you had just looked at it from what the MLS said or what a quick tour would have been, and you didn't try to apply any creative thinking like, how could we put a couple of businesses on this, it might not pencil. And so that's a recommendation that I encourage everyone to take. If you've found the perfect location, how can you work on the operating opportunities in order to make it work? And that's currently what we're doing here. So we did a little bit of at-risk work, and sure, it's not super sexy and beautiful, and maybe the door is still rusty on the bottom, but we did give this building a little bit of an overhaul and hosted our first community pop-up sauna session over the weekend, after we hooked up a trailer of a sauna and drug it through both towns to make a splash with the new business opportunity. So you might not be someone that's interested in entrepreneurship. You might know someone that is. I think this is a time where we get back to Christy's mention earlier of networking. In hindsight, and I share this in a second, but as part of this deal, we received a good bit of seller financing. If we had been able to find this off the MLS by maybe seeing that this project was, not abandoned, but not moving forward, there was maybe an opportunity to, talk and secure that before it hit the real estate market, and test this concept, right? We've got some business ideas that we're looking to test. Hey, what would it mean if I could work on, a deal to rent this space from you for a weekend to test this idea and see if our community is excited about the idea about public sauna on the waterfront? And thinking about how you're approaching business and development, I think together can be a superpower if you're so interested and inclined, or if you're willing to find people that are also as crazy as you and willing to come along for the ride.
100%. Just to drop in a nugget, guys, the thing that surprised me most when I started development is, even as a professional developer building for the national tenants, we bought our land off market. Most of the land that we bought was never listed for sale. So finding off market deals and reaching out to that old build, that's key. And it works.
Yes. Yeah. And there are lots of tools in technology, prop search. There's ways. I happen to live really close to this development, and I saw that there were people working, but I didn't see a lot of progress. Had I been a little bit more bold, I could have gone and started to try to figure out if there was an opportunity to purchase this before it went on market. But it wasn't something that seemed plausible to me at the time, where now I'm a lot more bold and I'm happy to walk up and just knock on doors and see what I can make happen. So it's also part of that. But that's how you find the good deals. All right, so quick overview on market needs and project type. Like we mentioned, this is a commercial revitalization, and we'll be adding multiple commercial spaces to attract businesses, multiple businesses on the same property, and confirming with the city that our plans are reasonable, that they support, the zoning supported what we needed. Our city manager actually went and had it rezoned for us so that we could accomplish what we needed to. And again, having great relationships with the people in your local communities can make that so much easier if you get into something and need support. Because the community is prioritizing this location and wants to develop the waterfront, they've also applied for grants for city docks. If you remember, or maybe you might not be able to tell in these photos. Actually, you can't tell. Okay, so out here, there are 4 separate pilings that represent where people wanted to put docks, but never did. And when we talked to the city about it, they said they didn't do that because there was really no reason for anyone to come there. There's no business there, as they had hoped there would be in the past. And so they did not develop the docks. So as soon as we shared our plans with the city went and put in for grants in order to make city docks a reality, and possibly breaking ground on those first thing next spring. So, I mean, development is not a short timeline by any means, but having something within the next year of before you close on a property seems pretty amazing. Fingers crossed. Everyone keep your fingers crossed. We're also, again, working on a sauna facility business as part of this development, and we're working with the city to collaborate on an accessible cold plunge to support that. And they are willing to do that on their dime because we talked to them about it. They're also very interested in a community fireplace. We have multiple community fireplaces on the other side of the canal that are not used. And my recommendation was, well, if we have a business supporting it, if you guys build it and we manage it, that would be a great way for us to mutually win and attract people to the waterfront and have some very exciting things to do while you're down there. And again, just overarchingly, this is what the city views as a cornerstone development. So if you can find a building that is in desperate need of repair in your community and work closely with your local partners and with your city to revitalize it, I think it will earn you opportunities that you can't even fathom at this time.
And you brought up some really great points where you just showed how the city saw you take initiative and then the city jumped in and combined and collaborated with you to add to it. So sometimes it might feel like it's scary to talk to city managers or mayors or council members. Guys, they're people just like you. Like they say, they put their pants on one leg at a time too. They want you. They are literally actively looking to find emerging developers. And if you show initiative, they're going to add to it. And together, your guys' efforts can create amazing projects like this that otherwise wouldn't happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, agree wholeheartedly. And sometimes like politics and city officials, it can be really scary, but getting to know them, taking them out for coffee, just, having a conversation is a great way to get started. And it worked out really well for us. Putting the deal together, we have a number of partners, both investors as well as partners that we're working on the deal. I think one of them happens to be on this call right now. Hi, Christian. And our redevelopment focus of our local community creates a lot of regional funding opportunities. So we've got Michigan Economic Development Coalition that also does funding to support different projects. And we're working with the representatives of these groups that literally it is their day job to find and help developers in the state of Michigan. So whatever that looks like for your state or your area, that's worth pursuing and talking about. And again, we've mentioned it a lot already, collaborating with local government and organizations. And the phasing for this project is going to be a phased approach. We're going to focus on the main building, or focusing on the sauna facility first, because we can do all of the updates to the exterior. That great coat of paint you saw, but we're actually physically dropping saunas. We're building them offsite. So I guess that makes them modular, right? Our modular construction of our saunas will be delivered in the month of August. And then we'll turn our attention to the partially renovated restaurant building that occupies the other side of the property, and where we have big plans and possibly one, maybe two businesses that will go into that space. Awesome. And a quick overview of financials and timeline. Again, the acquisition for this land is $1 million, and that includes owner financing, which we were able to negotiate as part of the MLS deal that we're working on. We estimate renovation costs in totality to be 500 to 800. That doesn't include kind of the development that we would work on with MEDC and what it would take to put up another building in place of the one that we shared. The initial phased completion of phase 1, so that will be the sauna facility, is 4 months. And then we're hoping over the next to start sistering the timelines together so that we see that construction continue to go faster on the partially renovated restaurant building. So long term, we're looking at 1 to 3 years, and that includes potentially tearing down and rebuilding the townhouses in that smaller structure that we saw that we had painted. And we think there's lots of economic and social benefits for the community, having a place to go, having a reason to hang out on the waterfront, having access to the trails and the waterfront trails, both walking, motorized, and being right off of the downtown. This kind of creates a natural gateway up to the downtown area. Once stabilized, we anticipate consistent cash flow, even in these crazy interest market rates, although our lender has worked really hard to help us figure out how to keep those costs down. And the ARV, the ARV is going to be somewhere between 1.7 and 2.1 when we look at all of the projects that we hope to complete in this amount of time. Cool. Again, key takeaways, we just went over our 3 projects. We think we shared a lot of insights with you. Happy to answer questions and talk about the importance of strategic planning and community engagement. And before we move to that, so be thinking about your questions now. I just wanted to share with you guys, before we jump into the Q&As, that this is a bigger part of something that we are looking to share and hopefully help as many people as possible become local real estate developers in their community. This is our course, which is the starting point for local developers. If you're like, okay, I've got some investments, or I'm an entrepreneur and I'm really looking to up my game and figure out what I can do, or if development is right for me, this is the course for you. So just because you're here today, we are able to offer you a discount on this course, which is a whopping $200, way less than any development project that you will ever do. And today we can get it for you for 50% off. So because you're here with us, we appreciate you so much. much. This includes checklists and workflows, more examples of development projects, insights and tips, as well as some training, goal setting, and a Q&A session with us that we would love to be talking to you about your projects. And you've timed this perfectly because we have a special coupon code that you can use. So if you didn't catch the QR code on this screen, you can also write down this coupon code, which is available and working until the end of the week, where we would love to be able to get you guys into this course. But showstopper news. Christy, what did you just finish?
Guys, the full course is in the final days. It's in the final production right now. I am incredibly excited to have this part done. It was 17 years of experience boiled down into this course that is actually understandable and it's easy to go through. I think we have over 60 3 to 5 minute videos. We have over 50 resources of checklists, templates, overviews, basically everything that I've learned over the past 17 years poured into this. So it's awesome and incredible. The thing I will tell you, go ahead and take the starter course and go through it. You're going to get that credit when you purchase the full course. So take that, get the foundation. There's stuff that we do not repeat in the full course because we already did it. Because depending on who is there, they'll have different levels of experience. So it doesn't cost you any extra. Take it, make sure that development is right for you, because if we back it up, I mean, development is not for everyone, but everyone 100% can do it if they want to be that change maker, if they're willing to look fear in the face and just do it anyway. And when those doubts creep up and you question, well, can I do it? Yeah, you freaking can do it. And we're going to be here to help you. There's no information like this out there in the industry. We've got our institutional stuff that is worse than watching paint dry. So we're here to help you. We're going to make this fun. We'll end up building a community out of this, because that's how we can all come together, collaborate, and bring our ideas to life and find ways to make deals work in our communities. So super excited about this and where we're going from here, guys.
Thank you, Christy. And Justine did ask if the course was available. It was a lifelong enrollment. I don't think we've ever thought about that, but I think
Yeah,
think
it
so.
doesn't ever, like, unless the platform that we're using just disappears, which we would have all of that information
Move it.
saved elsewhere. It
Yes.
will be, yes.
And we'll
Because
continue to add to it as well. So
well,
we've already incorporated a lot of feedback into the early course and took
yes.
that and 10x'd it for the full course. So yeah, there.
I keep needing to stop myself from going back and updating the starter course until the full one's done, but we'll make, whether it's just even design and layout changes. But yes, we took all of the feedback from all the awesome people who purchased or did the beta testing on the course. I'm very stoked for the product that we're going to be giving you guys as well, because I know the content is solid, but the way you'll be able to use it and navigate it will be awesome. So
Awesome. And I do see we have a couple questions up here that might be lengthy, but feel free to drop any other questions in here. We'll stay a few minutes after the hour, but I think, yeah, we got through everything.
yeah, I think Justine started with some questions that we can probably give you short answers, but I do like the idea of maybe focusing a future webinar on. One part of your question is, how do you balance the financial returns with the community impact returns? That is number one. We're not doing this. We're not a nonprofit. You're not a nonprofit either. You're doing this because you need to make money. The businesses need to make money. A lender is never going to give you the debt if your deal does not make sense. So with that being said, all of these deals are going to be financially viable. The difference is in our smaller and medium-sized communities that are starting to be renovated, or like where I live, where we're starting to rebuild. The property values that will be here in Fort Myers Beach in 7 to 10 years are not what today's values are. We'll never get that. So that's why when we're thinking about it and we're thinking about the partners we're bringing in, we're most likely in our smaller and medium communities and our tertiary markets, you're going to have a longer hold time. So you're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see the true max returns, but they're going to cash flow. The deals are going to make sense the whole way. If you were to go into the primary and the secondary markets, those are where you will see those higher numbers. And the longer hold times in our smaller markets are strictly because whether you're selling it, like part of the hesitation for me to start rebuilding Fort Myers Beach sooner is I know I'm going to sell some of them to pay off the debt and to have some equity partners be able to exit the deal. We're not going to get the value that we need to sell it yet. So it's not there yet. So that's why we're holding off on that until we can get the terms to change. So it's a multifaceted one, but it's you get the returns and you impact your community. And if you're doing it in your backyard, you get that warm fuzzy feeling of the community impact while you're waiting the longer period for the more significant returns.
Thanks, Christy. I also like this question for a future webinar, Justine. Thank you for posing it. I think in my mind, one of the just a quick follow up to that. When we started looking for new markets, my husband and I, we'd moved back from Seattle. We were like, gosh, if we loved going to Whitefish, Montana. We were like, if we had just bought in Whitefish 10 years ago, we would have made such a smart financial move. Like, where is the next Whitefish? And we kept asking ourselves, like, where's the next place that we would want to, actively invest in? And it took us far too long for us to realize that it was actually our own backyard. And so I urge you to think about that, locally, is there opportunity within your backyard or a place that's not too far away? And then I really strongly believe in testing small projects, finding things, just testing partners, finding small projects, but also looking for people, like me, right? Like, I want to do things. I've got ideas, and finding networking opportunities, conferences, real estate investing groups, and finding ways to find people that have access to communities like mine, but don't necessarily have all of the other pieces that we need to do every project. You want to invest in FinHall? Looking at you, Justine. So there's lots of ways to, I think, start to think about areas outside of your backyard, but also keep it in a testable local way that will help you grow, and also do it in a way that feels safe, but also could benefit others. And how do we create win-wins for multiple developers or multiple partners on a project? But I do
100%.
like the idea of taking that from a full presentation. And that is a good one. If anyone does have any other presentation ideas, we will be doing this again next month, almost the same time, almost the same place. I will still be in a sauna, likely, but
Who knows what part of the world I'll be in or what equipment will be dropping on my head.
We'll switch it up. Excellent. Well, thank you all so much. I think we've gotten through some of the questions outside of all of the deep dive on yours, Justine, and come back next time and we will do a full rundown on that for sure.